Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro presented the report of his government performance during 2022 before the National Assembly. And Cuba assumed the pro-tempore presidency of the G77 plus China, the largest and most diverse group in the multilateral arena. And finally, the Russian President Vladimir Putin instructed his cabinet with the development of the recently new territories of Donetsk, Lugansk, Kherson and Zaporizhia for 2023. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. The President of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, presented to the National Assembly this government's report. The President made references to the economic and social recovery of the country, in addition to pointing out the upcoming challenges that the South American nation will face. The Venezuelan President also explained the realities in fiscal and financial matters. At the same time, he highlighted the resistance of the people and the efforts of the national government in the face of the sanctions imposed by the government of the United States. The President stressed that according to the Cabinet's estimates, this year the programs for the benefit of the people will be strengthened through the coordination with the Organization of the People's Power. And during the first part of his speech, President Nicolas Maduro reviewed the stages of the Bolivarian Revolution has gone through and stressed the role of the Venezuelan people that has played in defeating the counter-revolutionary actions carried out by the country's right in and outside in the Venezuelan territory, especially the measures adopted by different U.S. administrations against the Bolivarian Revolution.
Venezuela has faced wielding an admirable resistance. Our people is worthy of all admiration and respect because all the strength they have shown to be victorious at the end in the face of all aggressions.
The President also highlighted the strength and the potential of the Bolivarian nation to build a prosperous future and insisted on the importance of unity to defeat the sanctions, blockades, and economic persecution against the country.
Experiences, efforts, learning, lessons, and because of which we are here. That has brought us here, because we are here, in this place. Absolutely certain that Venezuela has every potential and strength to consolidate the future prosperity. And that calls for a lot of national union. Firstly, we need to come together to defeat the sanctions and the blockade and the economic persecution against Venezuela that continue to be brutal.
During the first part of his speech, the President mentioned that the national income of Venezuela has dropped dramatically and that they have learned to overcome that drop.
Income fell dramatically. This didn't happen 3 years ago. Today we have, now as I speak to you, it's falling. We only perceive 1% of the numbers we were supposed to perceive. That's why I tell you that when I tell you that we've learned to do more with fewer, it's not just a metaphor.
The President also mentioned that the year 2022 had begun to show glimmers, 2023, to show glimmers of economic growth.
2022 begins showing good signs. signs of economic growth, of positive reaction in a first stage of the emerging economic model as post-oil industry model.
Further in his intervention, the president stressed the need to build a post-petroleum economy, a truly independent economy.
We have insisted on the need of building a post-petroleum economy, a diverse economy, good and services economy, self-independent, self-sufficient economy. We have studied it very much. OPEC founder spoke about this, Juan Pablo Pérez Alfonso. Luis Beltrán Pedro Figueroa also spoke about this.
President Maduro referred to the present as the transitional period in the struggle of the Venezuelan people for a more just society.
New times in the world and in our region. I believe that Venezuela needs to set big goals from that point onwards, new transformation times. We have talked about it. New transitional time towards a new society with democracy, liberty, equality, justice, and happiness that we practice and share, that we can exercise our economic, social, and political rights.
Let's take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news, updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Authorities announced that some 5,000 hectares of crops were devastated by locust infestations in Uruguay, where agricultural activities are also currently affected by drought. The departmental director of the Ministry of Livestock, Agriculture and Fisheries, Daniel Berti, commented that the locust is highly damaging to the fields due to its predatory power. The solution is a complex anyway because of the ecological consequences of a generalized fumigation and its impact against other species such as bees, added Berti. Locust swarms devastate crops and cause major agricultural damage, which can lead to famine and starvation. While they occur in many parts of the world, today locusts are most destructive in subsistence farming regions of Africa. And on Wednesday, the Union of Professional Journalists of Minas Gerais in southern Brazil requested the public prosecutor's office to investigate the violent acts committed since the beginning of January by Bolsonaro supporters against media professionals. According to the union, Bolsonaro supporters who were camped in front of the 4th Command Company of the Army Military Region in western Belo Horizonte verbally and physically assaulted several journalists covering the situation at the Raja Gabaglia Avenue. In a statement, they denounced the reporters were victims of systematic harassment by Bolsonaristas. The Attorney General, Jarbas Soares, who accepted the petition, committed himself to investigate the cases within 30 days. And Cuba assumed the pro-tempore presidency of the G77 plus China, the largest and most diverse group in the multilateral arena, where it will have, among other purposes, to promote the objectives of the 2030 Agenda. The office handover took place as part of the 46th ministerial meeting of the G77 plus China held on Friday in New York. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel spoke online during the ceremony, which was attended by the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres. The Cuban president thanked the election of his country to preside over the organization, while stressing that Cuba will promote international cooperation in order to support developing countries.
On behalf of the Cuban people and government, I thank the Group of 77 plus China for the trust it has placed in Cuba to preside this year over such a broad and representative universe of nations. We also commend the honorable work carried out by Pakistan at the head of the group for 2022. We're highly honored to represent this diverse and thriving group at a time of monumental challenges for developing countries. We assume it with total dedication and a commitment that we will never defraud nations whose people have been as oppressed and persecuted as the Cubans have. It is with these people that we have forged ties of brotherhood through our common goals and hopes.
In Argentina, the impeachment trial of the 4 members of the Supreme Court of Justice for poor performance of their duties, promoted by the government of Alberto Fernandez, has already been scheduled after the leak of a telephone chats between judicial officials and sectors of the Macrismo party, where a possible agreement was made before issuing a ruling in favor of the city of Buenos Aires. From there, Buenos Aires, our correspondent Fernando Alonso.
The Impeachment Commission will start working on this issue on January the 25th, while the opposition decided to block the treatment of any law in the Congress. This is stated by national legislator.
As long as the government shows that it is capable of breaking any agreement, I insist, which is the foundation of Argentina, nothing else can be discussed. So my position is, until this does not leave the scene, nothing in Argentina can be discussed.
Although the government in Congress has secured at least the votes in the committee, the left front is willing not to paralyze the parliament and criticize the agreements uncovered between the court and Together for Change.
Obviously, the sessions are convened with an agenda, and we evaluate them according to the agenda. But the truth is that the position of Juntos por el Cambio is completely reactionary. It is quite hypocritical.
De hecho, uno de los grandes conflictos que va a haber en esa comisión es que Elisa Carrió, que es...
In fact, one of the great conflicts that will take place in that commission is that Elisa Carrió, who is a central part of Juntos por el Cambio, encouraged a political process against Lorenzetti, which triggered an internal conflict within the court and also within Juntos por el Cambio. This shows a very clear double standard of the opposition.
At the same time, President Alberto Fernandez will open the congressional session next week in a video summarizing his administration. With an electoral tone, he criticized the opposition's links with the justice system in order to give a boost to the political trial.
Those who do not appreciate democracy, those who want a country for the few, without public health, without education, without a justice system that serves the powerful, and without rights for those who work, want to discourage us.
The leak of telephone chats started all this. The beginning of the impeachment trials of the Supreme Court in Argentina will be televised, and the government says that never before in the history of Argentina has the relationship of a political force with the judiciary looked so bare.
Fernando Alonso, TeleSUR, Buenos Aires.
Now we move on to other topics. On Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin discussed with his cabinet the need to prioritize for 2023 the economic development of the new territories of Donetsk, Lugansk, Kherson and Zaporizhia. According to Putin, concrete guidelines will be set for the economic development of these regions, including the construction of schools, hospitals, clinics, improvement of infrastructure and transportation. He also emphasized that the need to support local entrepreneurs. Russia's head of state said that investment by large companies, both private and state-owned, should be made available if needed. Finally, he recalled that key performance indicators for the development of other federal subjects will be taken into account for the current year in the interest of moving towards greater economic sovereignty. And the Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova on Thursday stated that Moscow guards on the border of Armenia are there to ensure the security of that nation, adding that a suggestion to the contrary made by some Armenian officials was absurd.
The statement from Yerevan that, quote, the Russian presence poses a certain threat to the security of Armenia. Well, this is absurd. For decades, our military border guards have been making a significant contribution to ensuring the security of Armenia, guarding its borders. This is an objective reality that cannot be denied. Moreover, earlier, the current Armenian leadership publicly stated that the military presence of Russia corresponds to the national interests of the Republic.
And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. China activated on Thursday its warning system for the arrival of a cold front that will strongly impact more than half of the country, with plunging temperatures accompanied by sandstorms. The National Meteorological Department forecasts this will continue until Saturday and urged the authorities to take measures in the face of coming gales, rains, snow, and high concentrations of sand in different parts of the country. They specifically called for the protection of agriculture and urged people to avoid venturing outside their homes unnecessarily. Xinjiang, Hebei, Chongqing, and Hunan regions are to expect the lowest temperatures and the most rain, while the north and the northeast of the country will be hit by sandstorms. Last year, China suffered unprecedented drought and extreme heat, while this winter has been rather warm. And Taiwan continued to hold military exercises on Thursday, simulating joint forces against an invading enemy from the sea in this southern region. On Thursday, amphibious tanks and Marine Corps soldiers were seen firing at targets at the Kaohsiung Naval Base. Yu Shenping, the commandant of the Marine Corps Special Force, said the exercises are a live far battlefield simulation and a combined exercise involving air, land, and sea. The Taiwan Navy also showed off its first indigenous amphibious transport dock with helicopter landing, military vehicles, and landing ships. In the face of escalating tensions, the Chinese People's Liberation Army regularly conducts military drills of various specialties and troop types near Taiwan, the island, in response to U.S. provocations in the vicinity of the island, which Peking considers its legitimate territory. In the United States and Japan agreed on Wednesday that their security and defense treaty will be strengthened and announced the deployment of a more agile marine infantry unit on Allied soil. The talks come 2 days before Prime Minister Fumio Kishida visits the United States as part of a tour of the G7 group. Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi said the United States and Japan together have the vision of a modernized alliance to acquire the posture to win in the new era of strategic competition. On the other hand, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, at a press conference with his Japanese counterpart and the defense ministers of both countries, pointed out that the People's Republic of China is the greatest common strategic challenge facing his nation, allies, and their partners. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.